Hey everybody, I'm trying something a bit different today with a scripted edited video for the first time. So apologize up front for what's sure to be some rough editing here. Anyway, to start with, what prompted this video? The short answer is the prompt was the latest Pokemon Legends Arceus video released about the other week or so. And importantly, it included one very good boy. Along with the video came the announcement that the Hisuian Growlithe, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, would have the Firerock type combination, which prompted discussion as to the competitive viability of a potential Firerock Hisuian Arcanine. Now, we don't know if Hisuian Growlithe will evolve into a quote-unquote Hisuian Arcanine, or maybe instead pull a Berserker on us and evolve into an entirely new Pokemon. But we'll take Occam's razor for now, like most people have done, and assume that a Firerock Hisuian Arcanine will happen. Now, while the original Growlithe and Arcanine were already based on the Chinese Guardian Lion or Fudog statues, Hisuian Growlithe clearly leans much further into this cultural origin. With Growlithe's awesome new hairdo, there's been plenty of speculation that Hisuian Arcanine could get Rockhead as an ability to complement its existing Fire-type move, Flare Blitz, and potential new Rock-type move, Head Smash. Even though Fire Rock isn't a great competitive type combination in general, I mean, it's nice offensively, but rather poor defensively, that potential ability and move combination is certainly very tantalizing, something I've thought of before when the announcement was made. Now, this is probably the time to mention that Arcanine is my favorite Pokemon. It's been my favorite for an incredibly long time. Not quite since I first started playing Pokemon with Yellow version, but the Big Tiger Dog has been up there for me for quite a while. It ultimately ended up being the very first Pokemon that I've ever raised to level 100, which I finally did in Pokemon Sun. Now, competitively, Arcanine has had its ups and downs. While it's certainly seen some utility recently, it has often suffered from the common shortcomings of Fire-type Pokemon without second types. Which is to say, it has a general lack of coverage moves, and again, it's relatively weak typing defensively. Arcanine has had a little better luck than other mono Fire-type Pokemon in terms of coverage throughout the years, but it got a major boost in Gen 5 by getting access to Close Combat, Wild Charge, and Arcanine and Outrage. Moves from 3 types that Arcanine has already had access to previously, just not at quite the high power level it got in Generation 5. And yes, Arcanine previously had access to Dragon-type moves. More on that in a second. Which, in addition to the fact that one of Arcanine's 2 main sets is that of a strong physical attacker, it's always made me wish that Arcanine had the move Dragon Dance to complement this set as well. With a new potential Hisuian Arcanine coming out that leans even further into its Chinese origins than the original Arcanine has before, I made a comment on Facebook that this newer form really made me want Dragon Dance as an option all the more, even more than before. And someone asked why I thought Arcanine would even get Dragon Dance to begin with. And that is the long answer for what prompted this video. It's time for me to explain why I think Arcanine should get Dragon Dance. First, let's start with Arcanine's history using Dragon-type attacks. In Gen 1, Arcanine can learn Dragon Rage by TM. In Gen 2, it can learn Dragon Breath by TM, and still potentially have Dragon Rage by transfer from Gen 1. It unfortunately doesn't get any Dragon-type moves in Gen 3, but starting in Gen 4, it gets access to Dragon Pulse, and as mentioned before, it first gets access to Outrage in Gen 5, both of which it can still obtain. Now, this may not seem like an extensive Dragon-type moveset to some people, but it is more impressive when you consider not just that Arcanine isn't a Dragon-type itself, but also that it's a mammal, specifically a Tiger Dog, which I think is close enough to Chinese Fudog, Lion Dog, Guardian Lion mentioned before. Dragon Rage and Dragon Breath cannot be learned by any other mammalian Pokemon, and only 2 other mammals can learn Dragon Pulse, Ampharos and Lucario. Outrage sees a larger distribution among mammals, one that is much larger in Gen 7 than it is in Gen 8, with the latter case limited to selected normal and Dark-type Pokemon plus Primeape and Mankey. Please note that obviously discounting Mew in all of this, whose gimmick is that it can learn almost every TM, TR, and tutor move out there. Anyway, some mammalian Pokemon can also learn Dragon Claw or Dual Chop, but even with those distributions, Arcanine still easily leads all mammals with 4 Dragon-type moves, with very few mammals even getting 1 Dragon-type move. The question now, then, is why does Arcanine seem to have such a strong association with the Dragon-type, at least in getting so many Dragon-type moves? Does it deserve this association, and by extension, does it deserve to get Dragon Dance? Before making this video, I went searching here on YouTube to see if anyone had addressed this issue before. While there are some great videos about Arcanine's origins out there, none have really dug into this particular issue. Still, they're a great place to start, and some of the suggestions I'll be making leverage directly off of some of Arcanine's history pointed out in those videos. One of the first interesting things that people may notice about Arcanine is that it is a legendary Pokemon. Specifically, it is legendary by category, i.e. the species subtitle that you'll see stated in the Pokédex, while not necessarily being legendary in the lore or metagame sense of the term. This wasn't the original intended case, though. The One Integral points out in their video that Arcanine was originally intended to be the fire complement to what would become the first 2 legendary birds of Kanto, Articuno and Zapdos. This was obviously later dropped to create a full trio of legendary birds with Moltres. Still, the first season of the Pokemon anime infamously included Arcanine on a 4-part ancient tablet art piece, with the 3 legendary birds in one of the very first episodes, suggesting that the creators were still considering to have Arcanine to be incredibly rare, to the point of being considered a legend, despite the fact that Growlithe were incredibly common as police dogs, and Arcanine later became Gary Oak's signature Pokemon. One remnant of Arcanine's original legendary status is its incredibly high base stat total. Even with the power creep in the 7 generations since Arcanine's release, it remains one of the strongest Pokemon in the series by stat total. In fact, if you ignore the legendary, mythical, pseudo-legendary, and mega Pokemon, so all of these kind of extras, there are only 2 Pokemon with a higher base stat total than Arcanine, namely Slowking and Archeops. Both of those other 2 Pokemon have abilities that nerf them with Truant and Defeatist respectively, leaving Arcanine as the strongest, no drawbacks, easily accessible Pokemon. Now, as a side note, while Arcanine's stats are incredibly high, it's a generalist, not a specialist, with all of its stats falling within the 30-point range. This, similar to its mono fire typing, contributes to where Arcanine has sometimes struggled to see usage in the competitive sense. While Arcanine's near legendary status had an obvious effect on its stats, I would speculate that that status might have also had an effect on its move pool, as many legendary Pokemon tend to have a wide and powerful move pools. Of note, too, is that Dragon-type is one of the most common types for legendary Pokemon, which could potentially provide some of the flavor for why Arcanine had its Dragon connections. It's a weak speculation, I know, especially as many legendary Pokemon have no Dragon-type moves at all. But the Dragon connection gets a bit stronger when you dig a bit more into Arcanine's real-world inspiration. As mentioned before, Growlithe and Arcanine are likely strongly based on the Chinese guardian lion statues. While both Pokemon are dogs, the colloquial term foo dog used for these stone statues is likely due either to a mistranslation or to the cultural adaptation from the Chinese shishi to the Japanese shisha and komainu, similar statues. And this all compounded by the presence of several dog breeds from Asia that somewhat resemble the statues. But these statues are not the only significant presence of the Asiatic lion in Chinese culture. The lion dance is a significant and very entertaining component of many Chinese festivals, and, in my opinion, makes an even stronger case as inspiration for Arcanine's design, with Arcanine's stripes and flowing hair, not just its mane, having good parallels to the intricate and flashy designs of the lion dance costumes. Closely related to the lion dance is the dragon dance, not quite the Pokemon move, but inspiration for it. In fact, I think there's a good case to be made that the Pokemon move Dragon Dance is more closely related to the Lion Dance than it is to the actual Dragon Dance. In a Lion Dance, you have two performers standing directly underneath the lion costume and performing very acrobatic movesets to higher tempo music, usually focused on drums. Conversely, a traditional Dragon Dance has a variable number of performers, usually closer to 9 than to 2, holding up a dragon costume on poles, forcing the dance itself to be slower and more fluid. Considering that the Pokemon move Dragon Dance raises a user's attack and speed stats, it sure seems to me like it draws more from the traditional Lion Dance than the traditional Dragon Dance. If you need one example of this that you might have seen before, Noggin even uses as a clip of two Lion Dance performers for Dragon Dance in his video describing Dragon-type moves, though this could be less intentional and more simply not recognizing the difference, because even with the differences between these two traditional dances, there are enough similarities between them as well that the exact inspiration for Dragon Dance, the move, doesn't matter too much for the purpose of this video. Both traditional dances feature flamboyant animal costumes controlled by multiple performers, often led by a human character interacting with the animal character, and are performed at festivals and other major events to bring good fortune and luck and to ward off evil spirits. There are many dance sport organizations and competitions around the world that pair these two dances together, and it certainly is the case that many Western audiences may not immediately recognize the distinction between the two. Obviously, the creators of Pokemon are in Japan and are more likely to know these differences, though, but I also wouldn't rule out the earliest Pokemon playing a little fast and loose with cultural nuances. Either way, I think it is entirely fair to connect the traditional Lion Dance to the Pokemon move Dragon Dance, either by the direct character of the dance's intensity, or by indirect association with the traditional Dragon Dance. And with Arcanine's similar origin and similar appearance to the Lion Dance costumes, I do feel it really should get this move. And that's just Arcanine as we already know it. With the new potential Hisuian Arcanine leaning even more into Arcanine's Chinese heritage, it seems all the more appropriate to me that Dragon Dance Arcanine needs to happen in Pokemon Legends Arceus and beyond. And the good boy can always earn a little more love after all. So, to wrap up the questions I asked earlier, why does Arcanine seem to have a strong association with the Dragon type, and does it deserve this association, and by extension, does it deserve to get Dragon Dance? Well, the association can come from two places. The fact that Arcanine was, and maybe is, legendary in its own right, and because there is a moderately strong connection between the traditional Chinese Lion Dance and the traditional Dragon Dance. So whether Arcanine is intended as a dragon or not is almost certainly no, with a maybe at best. I still say it certainly deserves the Dragon-type moves it knows, and most definitely deserves to learn Dragon Dance moving forward. And that's a wrap. I hope you guys enjoyed my first scripted video and weren't too turned off by the very rough editing. Please like and subscribe, especially if you want to see me streaming videos of video games in the future. And if this video itself gets good enough feedback, I may make a habit of producing more like it. I certainly have a Zelda theory or two that it might be fun to delve into with a video essay like this. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all later. Bye.